The door to the Silver Spur saloon didn't creak when Clara Whitmore pushed it open. It slammed, a flat, decisive sound that cut through the piano music and card games like a gunshot. Every head turned, not because a woman had entered, though that alone would have been enough, but because this woman was bleeding. Clara didn't look at them, couldn't. Her left eye had swollen shut an hour ago, maybe two. Time had stopped meaning much after the third blow. She kept her right eye fixed on the bar at the far end of the room, 20 feet of stained floorboards that might as well have been 20 miles. Her father's men would check the hotel first, then the church, then here. She had minutes, if that. The bartender, a thick-necked man with hands like anvils, froze mid-pour. "Ma'am, you can't—" "I need help." Her voice came out wrong, broken. She hated the sound of it. The piano had stopped. 30 men stared at her now, their faces ranging from shock to disgust to something worse, the kind of interest that made her skin crawl. She'd been raised to fear this room, these men, this entire building. Respectable women didn't cross that threshold. Her mother had said so 1,000 times, back when her mother was still alive to say anything. Clara wasn't respectable anymore. She'd stopped being respectable the moment she fought back. "Please." She took another step and her knee buckled. The floor rushed up to meet her, but she caught herself on the edge of a table, cards scattered. A man cursed. "You need to leave," the bartender said, but there was uncertainty in his voice now. She was bleeding on his floor. That changed things, apparently. Made her less of a scandal and more of a problem. "I'll pay." She fumbled at the small leather pouch tucked inside her torn dress. Her fingers wouldn't work right. Everything was shaking, her hands, her legs, her voice. "I have money. I just need—" "Your daddy know you're here?" The question came from somewhere to her left. She didn't turn to see who'd asked, didn't need to. Everyone in Dry Creek knew Marcus Whitmore. Most owed him money, the rest owed him fear. "He's the reason I'm here." The words came out flat. True. Silence dropped like a stone. Clara's right eye, the one that still worked, swept across the room. Not one of them would help her. She could see it in their faces. Her father owned half this town and controlled the rest. These men would drink and gamble and pay for company upstairs, but they wouldn't lift a finger against Marcus Whitmore. Not for her. Not for anyone. She'd known that before she walked in. Had known it her whole life. But knowing something and feeling it carve into your chest were different things. "Then you'd best go back to him," the bartender said quietly, almost kindly, as if sending her back to get beaten, or worse, was a mercy. "Before this gets uglier," Clara laughed. It hurt. Everything hurt. "Uglier than this?" She gestured at her face, her torn dress, the blood on her hands. Her own blood. Some of it was from her split lip. Some from her nose. The rest from where she'd clawed at him when he'd grabbed her hair and slammed her against the wall of his study. That had been the last time. There wouldn't be another. "Ma'am?" The bartender's voice had changed, gotten harder. "I'm asking polite." "She can stay." The new voice came from the back corner, deep, quiet, the kind of voice that didn't need to be loud to carry weight. Clara turned, too fast. The room spun. She grabbed the table again, cards crunching under her palm, and squinted through the dim lamplight and cigar smoke. A man sat alone at a corner table, half in shadow. He hadn't been playing cards. No chips, no hand visible on the table. Just a half-empty glass of whiskey and a stillness that made him look carved from stone. He was maybe 35, maybe older. Hard to tell with men like that. The frontier aged some people and preserved others, depending on how they'd spent their years. Dark hair. Jaw like it had been broken and healed wrong. Eyes that looked past you and through you at the same time. "Cole," the bartender said, and there was warning in it. "Don't." Cole. She didn't know the name, didn't know him. But he stood anyway, slowly, like a man who'd learned not to make sudden movements, and the room seemed to shift around him. He wasn't tall, not particularly, but something in the way he moved made other men lean back, made space where there hadn't been space before. "She asked for help," Cole said. Not to the bartender, to everyone. "Anyone else offering?" No one spoke. "Didn't think so," He looked at Clara then, really looked at her, and she saw something flicker across his face. Recognition, maybe. Not of her, they'd never met, but of the situation, of what it meant when a woman showed up bleeding and desperate in a place like this. You got a name? Clara. Clara. He repeated it once, like he was testing the weight of it. You being followed? Yes. How many? I don't. Her voice cracked. She swallowed hard, tasted blood. 4, maybe 5. They'll check the hotel first. That gives us 10 minutes. He drained his whiskey in one swallow and set the glass down with a soft click. Maybe 15 if we're lucky. We? The bartender stepped forward now, blocking Cole's path. You can't be serious. That's Marcus Whitmore's daughter. You know what he'll do? I know what he's already done, Cole said quietly, and his eyes went to Clara's face. Lingered there. Not on the bruises. On her. Like he was seeing a person instead of a problem. I know what he'll keep doing. That ain't your business. It is now. Cole moved past the bartender, not roughly, just with the kind of certainty that made arguing pointless, and stopped in front of Clara. Up close, she could see the scar that ran from his left temple to his jaw, old, faded to white, the kind you got from a knife, not a fall. Can you ride? Clara blinked. What? A horse. Can you ride one? Yes, I can ride. Good. He glanced toward the door, then back at her. You came here because you're out of options. That about right? She nodded, couldn't trust her voice. Then here's what's going to happen. You're going to walk out of here with me. We're going to get you on a horse, and we're going to put distance between you and whoever's coming. His voice was flat, matter of fact, like he was describing the weather. After that, we'll figure out the rest. Why? The question came out hoarse. Why would you help me? Cole was quiet for a moment. Something moved behind his eyes, something old and dark and painful. Because someone should have helped her, he said finally, and nobody did. Clara didn't ask who her was. Didn't need to. The weight in those 4 words told her everything. Cole. The bartender tried one more time. Marcus Whitmore will burn this whole town looking for her. You know he will. Then he'd better bring matches. Cole turned toward the door, then paused and looked back at Clara. You coming or not? She looked at the room full of men, at the bartender with his practical fear, at the door behind her that led back to the street, back to the hotel, back to her father's house with its locked rooms and heavy silence. Then she looked at Cole Harland, this stranger with his scarred face and his flat, certain voice, and made the only choice she had left. I'm coming. The night air hit her like a fist, cold, clear. She'd forgotten what it felt like to breathe without her father's presence filling every corner of her room. Cole moved fast but didn't run. Running drew attention. Instead, he walked like a man with business to attend to, his hand light on Clara's elbow, not restraining, just steadying. She tried to match his pace, but her legs weren't cooperating. The adrenaline that had carried her this far was starting to crack. There. Cole nodded toward a hitching post outside the general store. 2 horses waited there, 1 bay and 1 gray. The bay's mine. You take the gray. That's not... It's mine too. He was already untying the reins. Bought her last week. Haven't named her yet. Clara stared at him. You bought 2 horses? Had a feeling I might need a spare. He glanced at her. Call it intuition. Before she could respond, he'd moved to the gray mare and checked the saddle with quick, practiced movements. Clara tried to step toward the horse, but her knee buckled again, properly this time. She went down hard, palms scraping against the dirt. Easy. Cole was there before she could even process the fall, one hand under her arm, pulling her up. When'd you last eat? I don't... She couldn't remember. Yesterday? The day before? Time had gotten strange lately. It doesn't matter. It matters. He pulled something from his coat pocket, dried meat wrapped in cloth, and pressed it into her hand. Eat. You won't make it 10 miles like this. She wanted to argue, wanted to say she was fine, that she could manage, that she didn't need... Her stomach clenched so hard she almost doubled over. Eat. Cole said again. Gentler this time. She ate. The meat was tough, salty, and the best thing she'd ever tasted. She didn't realize she was crying until Cole handed her a canteen and she saw the water ripple with her reflection, distorted, broken. They're coming, Cole said suddenly. Clara looked up. Heard it now. Hoofbeats. Multiple horses. Coming from the direction of the hotel. Her father's men. Can you mount? Cole was already on his bay, reaching down toward her. Clara grabbed the gray's saddle horn and pulled herself up. It took 3 tries. Her ribs screamed. Something might have been cracked. She'd felt it snap during the fight. But she got her leg over and settled into the saddle, and that was enough. Stay close, Cole said. Don't look back. Don't stop. You hear me? Where are we going? Away. He kicked his horse into motion. Clara followed. Behind them, men shouted. She heard her name, her father's voice, loud and commanding, even at a distance. She wanted to look back. Every instinct screamed at her to look back. She didn't. They rode. The town fell away behind them. Buildings gave way to scrubland to open desert. The moon was up, 3/4 full, bright enough to see by, bright enough to be seen by. Cole kept them at a hard gallop for the first hour. Clara's world narrowed to the rhythm of the horse beneath her, the ache in her ribs, the cold wind burning her face. She focused on staying in the saddle, on breathing, on not falling. When Cole finally slowed, pulling his bay to a walk, she almost sobbed with relief. You hurt? He called back. I'm fine. A lie. Everything hurt. But she was alive, and that was more than she'd expected when she'd walked into that saloon. Cole didn't look convinced, but he didn't push. Instead, he angled his horse toward a cluster of rocks, the start of rougher terrain. We need to get off the flat ground. They'll track us easy out here. How far behind do you think they are? Not far enough. He dismounted and started leading his horse between the rocks. Your father's men? They know this land? Clara slid from her saddle, legs shaking. Some of them. Curtis grew up here. And Jake, he used to hunt in the mountains. Jake, the one with the scar across his nose? Yes, how did you? Saw him in town last week, asking questions. Cole glanced back at her. About you. Clara's stomach dropped. What kind of questions? The kind a man asks when he's planning something. Cole stopped at a narrow gap between 2 boulders. They've been watching you for a while, haven't they? She nodded, couldn't speak. How long? 3 months, maybe 4. She wrapped her arms around herself, suddenly cold despite the exertion. Since my father announced the engagement. Cole went still. Engagement. To Thomas Garrett. He owns the lumber mill outside Carson City. She stopped, swallowed. He's 53, and my father owes him $30,000. The silence that followed was worse than questions would have been. I see, Cole said finally. His voice had gone flat again, carefully empty. And you said no. I said no. The memory of it made her shake. He hit me, first time in months, said I was being ungrateful, hysterical, said Thomas was a good man, a respectable man, that I should be honored. Her voice broke. So you ran. So I fought back. She looked at her hands. The knuckles were split, bruised. I broke a lamp over his head, and then I ran. Cole studied her for a long moment. Then he turned and continued through the gap. Good. Clara almost laughed. Almost. Good? You fought back. That's more than most people do. He emerged on the other side of the rocks into a small hollow, protected from the wind. We'll rest here. 2 hours. Then we move again. 2 hours isn't enough. It's what we've got. He started unsaddling his horse with efficient movements. Get some water, check your ribs, and stay quiet. Clara opened her mouth to argue, then closed it. He was right. He'd been right about everything so far. The horses, the route, the timing. She didn't know this man. Didn't know why he'd chosen to help her. But she knew better than to question the only ally she had. She drank from the canteen, checked her ribs as best she could, tender, painful, but nothing obviously broken. Then she sat against the rocks and watched Cole work. He moved like someone who'd done this before, many times. The way he positioned the horses to block the wind, the way he checked their hooves, ran his hands down their legs, looking for injuries, the way he rationed the water and feed he'd apparently packed in his saddlebags. "You were planning this," Clara said quietly. Cole looked up. "What?" "The second horse, the supplies. You were already planning to leave." He didn't deny it, just went back to checking his beige shoes. "Why?" Clara asked. "Same reason you walked into that saloon." He straightened, met her eyes. Because staying was worse than leaving. She wanted to ask more, wanted to know what he was running from, what he'd lost, why a stranger would risk his life for hers. But exhaustion was pulling at her now, dragging her down like an undertow. "Get some sleep, Cole said. "I'll keep watch." "You need to sleep too." "I will. After." He settled against the rocks with his rifle across his knees, eyes on the darkness beyond their shelter. "After I'm sure we're alone." Clara wanted to argue, wanted to insist she could take a watch, that she wasn't helpless, that she could carry her own weight, but the words wouldn't come. The adrenaline was gone now, burned away by pain and fear and the slow, creeping realization of what she'd just done. She'd left everything, her home, her name, the life she'd known, terrible as it was. She'd thrown it all away on the word of a stranger with a scarred face and eyes that looked through everything, and she'd do it again. That thought followed her down into sleep. She woke to voices. Clara's eyes snapped open. Dawn was breaking, pale light bleeding across the horizon. Cole was on his feet, rifle raised, pointed at the gap between the rocks. "I know you're out there," he called. Not loud. He didn't need to be. "And I know you've got us boxed in, so let's talk before this gets stupid." A laugh echoed from beyond the rocks. Male. Rough. "Stupid? You stole Marcus Whitmore's daughter, friend. We're way past stupid." Clara recognized the voice. Curtis. Her father's foreman, the one who'd smiled when he'd locked her in her room, who'd watched while her father... She pushed the thought away, stood on shaking legs. "Stay down," Cole said without looking at her. "There are 4 of them," Clara whispered. "Curtis, Jake, and 2 others. I heard them talking. I count 5. Her blood went cold. "5? Your father sent reinforcements." Cole's voice was calm, too calm. "They must really want you back." "They're going to kill you," Clara said. The words came out hollow. "True. Even if I go with them, they'll kill you for this." "Probably." Cole adjusted his grip on the rifle. "You got any objections to that plan?" Clara looked at him, really looked at him. This man who'd given her food and water and 2 hours of sleep, who'd risked his life for a stranger, who was about to die because she'd been desperate and stupid. And, "Yeah," she said, "I've got objections." Something that might have been a smile crossed Cole's face. "Good, because I've got a plan." "What kind of plan?" "The kind that gets us both killed if it doesn't work." He glanced at her. "You trust me?" Clara thought about that. Thought about the saloon, the horses, the way he'd looked at her bruises like they mattered, the way he'd said, because someone should have helped her, like it was the simplest truth in the world. "Yes," she said. "I trust you." "Then get on your horse." "But now, Clara." She moved, grabbed the gray's reins, mounted despite her screaming ribs, and waited. Cole kept his rifle trained on the gap. "Curtis," he called. "You still there?" "Right here, friend." "I'm going to give you one chance. Turn around. Tell Marcus you lost us. Collect your pay and go home." Curtis laughed again, harder this time. "You know I can't do that." "Then you know what happens next." "Yeah. We kill you, take the girl, and collect twice our usual pay." A pause. "Nothing personal." "Never is," Cole said quietly. Then to Clara, "When I shoot, you ride. Straight through that gap. Don't stop. Don't look back. Understand? What about you? I'll be right behind you. He looked at her then. I promise. Clara wanted to believe him, wanted to think this wasn't suicide. But she'd seen 5 men in her father's employ, had seen what they did to people who crossed Marcus Whitmore. She nodded anyway. Cole took a breath, steadied his rifle, and fired. The shot echoed like thunder. Clara heard someone scream, pain, surprise, both. And then Cole was moving, firing again as he ran toward his own horse. Go! Clara kicked the gray into motion. The mare lunged forward, hooves scrabbling on rock, and then they were through the gap and into open space. Clara heard more shots, close, too close, and something whined past her ear. A bullet. They were shooting at her. But she didn't stop. Couldn't stop. The gray mare ran like she understood what was at stake, stretching out into a full gallop across the rocky ground. Clara leaned low over her neck, made herself small, and prayed to whatever was listening that Cole was behind her. More shots. Shouting. The thunder of hooves. Clara risked a glance back. Cole was there, 10 yards behind, his bay running hard. But so were the others. 4 men now, not 5. Curtis in the lead, face twisted with rage. They were gaining. Faster, Cole shouted. Like she wasn't already pushing the mare as hard as she dared. Like there was anything left to give. The ground started to slope upward, rougher. The horses stumbled, recovered. Clara's ribs felt like they were tearing apart with each jolt, each breath. She tasted blood again. The canyon! Cole pointed to a narrow cut in the rising rock ahead. Get in there! Clara angled toward it. The opening was barely wide enough for a horse. Shadowed, dangerous. She could hear water somewhere inside. Fast water. A river. Don't slow down! Cole was right behind her now, close enough that she could hear his breathing, harsh and controlled. The canyon swallowed them. Darkness closed in, broken only by strips of sky far above. The river was louder here, deafening. Clara's mare shied sideways, spooked by the noise, and nearly threw her. She held on, barely, fingers tangled in the mane. Behind them, Curtis and his men crashed into the canyon. Keep going! Cole's voice echoed off stone. The passage twisted, narrowed. Clara's legs scraped against rock. Would bruise, might bleed, didn't matter. She kept the mare moving forward, following the thread of light ahead. And then the canyon opened up. Clara burst out into sudden brightness and had to pull hard to avoid riding straight off a cliff. The gray skidded to a halt, throwing her forward. She grabbed the saddle horn, held on, and stared. They were on a ledge. 30 feet below, the river churned through white water. No way down, no way across, no way forward. Cole emerged behind her and swore. Short, sharp, final. We're trapped, Clara said. Her voice sounded strange, distant. Yeah. Cole dismounted, pulled his rifle. We are. Curtis and his men appeared in the canyon mouth, 4 shapes against the darkness. Curtis was bleeding, shoulder wound looked like, but he was grinning. End of the line, he called. Now, let's talk about this reasonable-like. Cole didn't answer, just stood there, rifle ready, between Clara and the men who'd come to take her back. Clara looked at the cliff, at the river, at Cole's scarred face and the certainty in his stance. There's another way, she said quietly. Cole glanced at her. What? The river. She pointed down. We jump. That water will kill you. So will they. Clara met his eyes. At least this way we choose. For a moment, Cole just stared at her. Then something shifted in his expression. Respect, maybe, or recognition. You sure about this? Clara thought about her father's study, the locked rooms, the engagement to a man 30 years her senior, the life that waited if she went back. I'm sure, she said. Cole nodded once. All right then. He turned to Curtis. Tell Marcus his daughter says hello. And then he grabbed Clara's hand and they jumped. The fall lasted forever. The water hit like a wall, and everything went dark. The cold was the first thing that came back. Not thought, not sight, just cold, everywhere, crushing. Clara's lungs screamed for air she couldn't find. Water pressed against her from all sides, spinning her, dragging her down and sideways and down again. She didn't know which way was up. Then something grabbed her arm. Hard, pulled. She broke the surface, gasping, choking, half drowning even in the air. Her vision was nothing but white water and rock and sky spinning too fast. The river had her. Wouldn't let go. "Breathe!" Cole's voice close but barely audible over the roar. His hand was still locked around her wrist. "Don't fight it. Don't fight it," like that was possible, like she had any choice but to fight every second of every day just to stay alive. But she tried, forced herself to stop thrashing, let the river carry her, let Cole guide her toward something, anything that wasn't drowning. Rock scraped her shoulder, pain flared bright and sharp. Then her feet hit bottom, just for a second, and Cole was hauling her sideways into slower water, an eddy behind a fallen tree. She grabbed at branches with her free hand, held on, coughed up what felt like half the river. "You hit?" Cole was right beside her, water streaming from his hair, his clothes. Blood ran down his temple from a cut she hadn't seen him get. Clara tried to answer, coughed instead, nodded. "Can you stand?" She thought about that, tested her legs. They held, barely. "Yeah." "Then we need to move. That ledge is a half-mile back. They'll find a way down." Clara looked around. They'd washed up on the inside bend of the river, where the water slowed and pooled. Trees grew thick here, reaching out over the water. No sign of the horses. No sign of anything but wilderness. "The horses," she managed. "Gone." Cole was already moving toward the bank, pulling himself up by tree roots. "Can't help that now." Clara followed, every muscle screaming protest. Her ribs felt worse, definitely cracked now, maybe broken. The cold had numbed most of her bruises, but she could feel them waiting underneath, ready to remind her what her body had been through. She dragged herself onto the bank and lay there for a moment, just breathing. The sky above was blue, clear, beautiful. She wanted to laugh at that, at the idea that the world could be beautiful while she was falling apart. "Clara." Cole's hand on her shoulder, gentle. "I know you're hurting, but we can't stop here." "I know." She pushed herself up, sat, looked at him, really looked at him. "You're bleeding. So are you." She touched her face. Her hand came away red, must have hit a rock on the way down. She couldn't even remember when. "How far do you think we came?" she asked. "Mile. Maybe 2. Cole scanned the tree line, eyes sharp, looking for movement, for danger. "River moves fast through that canyon. We got lucky." Lucky. Clara almost laughed again. "We just jumped off a cliff, and we're alive." Cole met her eyes. "That's lucky." She couldn't argue with that. Didn't want to. Instead, she looked down at herself. Dress torn beyond recognition, one shoe missing, hair plastered to her skull. She looked like something the river had spit out. Felt like it too. "We need to get you out of those clothes," Cole said. Clara's head snapped up. "You're going to freeze," he continued, matter of fact. "Wet clothes in this wind. You won't last till nightfall." He was already shrugging out of his coat. "I've got a spare shirt in my pack. It's wet too, but it's wool. Holds heat better." "Your pack?" Clara looked around. "You still have your pack?" Cole patted the leather bag still strapped across his chest. Soaked through, but intact. "Never take it off. Learned that the hard way." He pulled out a bundle of cloth, handed it to her. "Change. I'll keep watch." He turned his back. Clara stared at the shirt in her hands. It was gray wool, worn soft at the edges. The kind of thing a man wore when he was working, not when he was trying to impress anyone. She looked at her own dress, ruined, useless, soaked through. "Turn around more," she said. Cole shifted, faced completely away. Clara changed. It hurt more than it should have. Lifting her arms, pulling fabric over her head. Everything hurt. But she got the wet dress off and the wool shirt on. It hung to her knees, shapeless and too big. But it was warm. Or warmer anyway. "I need your pants, Cece," she said. Cole went still. "What?" "Not yours. I mean, do you have spare pants in your pack?" She could feel her face heating up despite the cold. "I can't walk in a dress, and this shirt it's not enough." A pause. Then Cole reached back into his pack and pulled out another bundle, tossed it over his shoulder without turning. They'll be too big. They were. Clara had to roll the waist 3 times and the legs twice. She used a piece of torn dress as a belt. When she was done, she looked ridiculous, felt ridiculous, but she could move. "All right," she said. Cole turned, looked at her. Something crossed his face, too quick to read. "We need to cover ground while we still can. You good to walk?" "Do I have a choice?" "No." He started into the trees. "But I'm asking anyway." Clara followed. The forest was dense here, pines and aspen mixed together, blocking the sun. The ground was soft with needles and last year's leaves. Clara's remaining shoe squelched with each step. After 10 minutes, she took it off and threw it away. Bare feet were better than one bare and one shod. Cole moved like he knew where he was going. Maybe he did. Clara had no idea. She'd never been this far from Dry Creek, had never been allowed to go this far. Her father had kept her close, kept her controlled, said the frontier was dangerous for women. He'd been right about that at least, just wrong about where the danger was. "You're limping," Cole said without looking back. "I'm fine." "You're limping." Clara gritted her teeth. "My ribs hurt. Walking helps. Don't slow down for me." Cole stopped, turned. "Listen to me. I'm not leaving you behind, not to rest, not to make better time, not for any reason. So you might as well tell me when something's wrong because I'm going to notice anyway, and we'll just waste time arguing about it." Clara stared at him. Nobody talked to her like that. Like she was, what, an equal? A partner? Not property, not a problem, just a person. "All right," she said quietly. "My ribs are cracked. Maybe broken. It hurts to breathe deep. Walking is better than sitting because sitting makes me think about it." Cole nodded once. "Anything else?" "I lost a tooth, back molar. I can feel it with my tongue." She paused. "And I'm scared." "Good. Scared keeps you sharp." He turned and started walking again. "We'll rest in an hour, not before." They walked. The sun climbed. Clara's feet started to bleed, small cuts from rocks and roots. She didn't mention it. Cole probably knew anyway. He seemed to know everything, which way to go, how to read the land, when to stop and listen for pursuit. After an hour, maybe longer, maybe less, he led her to a small clearing where a stream cut through the trees. Clara dropped to her knees and drank until her stomach hurt. The water was so cold it made her teeth ache. Cole pulled out more dried meat from his pack. It was damp, but edible. He divided it evenly and handed Clara her share. "How much food do we have?" she asked. 2 days, maybe 3 if we're careful. And then? "We hunt, or we find a town." He bit into the meat, chewed slowly. "Whichever comes first." Clara looked at him across the small space between them, this stranger who'd risked everything for her. "Why did you do it?" she asked. "Do what?" "Help me. In the saloon, you didn't know me, didn't owe me anything." Cole was quiet for a long time. When he finally spoke, his voice was careful, measured, like he was picking through broken glass. "I had a sister once, younger than me, sweet girl, too sweet for the world we lived in." He looked past Clara, seeing something she couldn't. "Man came around when I was working out of state, said the right things. Made the right promises. By the time I got home, she was gone." Clara's throat tightened. "What happened?" "He sold her." The words came out flat, empty. "To a house in Denver, the kind of house where girls don't leave." He met Clara's eyes. "I found her 3 months later. She'd hung herself with a bedsheet." The forest seemed to go quiet around them. "I'm sorry," Clara said. The words felt useless, small. "So am I." Cole stood. "That's why. When I saw you walk into that saloon with those bruises, looking like the world had already broken you," he stopped. "Someone should have helped her. Nobody did. I'm not making that mistake twice." Clara didn't know what to say to that. Didn't think there were words for it. So she just nodded and stood and followed him back into the trees. They walked until the sun started to drop. Cole found them shelter under an overhang of rock, not much, but enough to block the wind. He made a small fire using flint from his pack and dead wood from the forest floor. "Won't they see the smoke?" Claire asked. "Maybe, but you need the warmth more than we need the stealth." He fed the fire carefully. "Besides, we're far enough ahead now. They'll have to track us on foot. That'll take time." Clara sat close to the flames, letting heat soak into her bones. She was shaking again, had been for the last hour, but tried to hide it. Now she didn't bother. "Here." Cole handed her something else from his pack. A flask. "Small sips. It'll help with the shaking." Clara uncapped it and smelled whiskey. Strong. She took a sip and nearly choked. It burned all the way down. "I said small," Cole said, but there might have been amusement in his voice. She took another sip, smaller this time. The warmth spread through her chest, loosening something tight. "How long have you been planning to leave, eh?" she asked. "What makes you think I was planning it?" "The pack, the supplies, the second horse." Clara looked at him across the fire. "You don't carry that much unless you're ready to run." Cole poked at the fire with a stick. "I've been ready to run for 3 years, just never had a good enough reason." "What changed?" "You walked into my saloon and gave me one." He looked up. "Turns out I was just waiting for an excuse." Clara thought about that, about what it meant that they were both running, both trapped by different things but trapped all the same. "Where will you go?" she asked. After I'm safe, I mean." "Haven't decided yet." Cole added more wood to the fire. "North, maybe. Montana. I've heard there's land up there. Good land. Far from people who ask questions." "You want to ranch again?" He glanced at her, surprised. "How'd you know I ranched?" "Your hands, they're scarred the way my uncle's were, from ropes and barbed wire." She paused. "And you know horses. The way you handled them back in Dry Creek, that's not something you learn in a month." "Smart." Cole nodded slowly. "Yeah. I ranched, had my own place actually, small but mine. Then I made the mistake of trusting the wrong people with money." He smiled, but there was no humor in it. "Lost it all in a week. That was 4 years ago." "And you've been drifting since?" "More or less. He stretched his legs toward the fire. "Taking work where I can find it. Saving up to try again. But the frontier keeps getting smaller. Harder to find a place where the past doesn't catch up." Clara knew that feeling, had lived it her whole life in different ways. "My father owns half of Dry Creek," she said quietly. "The other half is scared of him. I used to think if I could just be good enough, quiet enough, perfect enough, he'd stop. He'd see me as something other than property." She laughed, bitter. "Took me 18 years to figure out that wasn't how it worked." "You're 19?" Cole asked. 20 last month." She pulled her knees up to her chest. "He gave me a necklace, gold with a little bird on it. Said I was precious to him, special." Her voice went hard. 2 days later, he announced the engagement. Didn't ask, didn't warn me, just stood up at dinner and told everyone I was going to marry Thomas Garrett in the spring. And you fought back. I tried to be reasonable first, asked him to reconsider, begged him. The memory made her stomach turn. He said I was being ungrateful, that Thomas was doing him a favor by taking damaged goods. Cole's jaw tightened. Damaged goods. "That's what he called me. Because I—" Clara stopped. Looked away. "It doesn't matter." "It does matter." "No, it doesn't." She met his eyes. "What matters is I'm not going back. Ever. Whatever it takes. Whatever I have to do. I'm not going back to that house." Cole studied her for a moment, then he nodded. "All right. All right? All right." He settled back against the rock. "Then we make sure you don't have to." Claire wanted to ask how. Wanted to know what the plan was, where they were going, what happened when the food ran out, or her father's men caught up, or winter came early. But she was so tired, tired down to her bones. "Get some sleep," Cole said. "I'll take first watch." "Wake me in 4 hours." "I will." He wouldn't. Clara knew that. Knew he'd sit up all night watching the darkness while she slept. Part of her wanted to argue. The rest of her was already sliding into unconsciousness. She dreamed of water, of falling, of her father's voice calling her name from the top of a cliff she'd already jumped. When she woke, dawn was breaking and Cole was still sitting exactly where he'd been, rifle across his knees, eyes on the tree line. "You didn't wake me," she said. "You needed the sleep." "So did you." Cole shrugged. "I've gone longer without." Clara sat up. Her ribs protested, her feet protested, her entire body protested. But she was alive and she was free. And that was enough. "We should move," Cole said. "They'll be tracking us by now." "How do you know?" "Because that's what I'd do." He stamped out the fire and scattered the ashes. "And your father doesn't strike me as the type to give up easy." Clara thought about Marcus Whitmore, about his cold eyes and his controlled voice and the way he smiled when he had the upper hand. "No," she agreed. "He doesn't give up." They walked. The land started to change as the morning wore on. The trees thinned out. The ground got rockier, started to slope upward. Mountains in the distance, blue and hazy with height. "We're heading into rough country," Cole said. "Slower going, but harder to track." "How much farther to wherever we're going?" 3 days, maybe 4. He glanced back at her. "Town called Silver Ridge. It's small, but it's far enough from Dry Creek that your father won't have influence there. We can get you on a stage, send you somewhere safe." "And you?" "I'll head north, like I said." Clara felt something twist in her chest. Of course he'd leave. Why wouldn't he? He'd done what he set out to do, helped her escape, kept her alive. She had no claim on him beyond that. But the thought of him leaving, of being alone again, made her throat tight. "How long have we been walking?" she asked, changing the subject. Cole checked the sun. 4 hours, maybe 5. "Can we rest?" He looked at her, saw something in her face, nodded. 5 minutes. Clara sank down onto a flat rock and pulled off her makeshift boots, cloth she'd wrapped around her feet that morning. The cuts had opened up again. Not bad, but not good either. Cole crouched in front of her, pulled out a small tin from his pack. "Give me your foot." "I can—" "Clara, give me your foot." She did. He cleaned the cuts with water from his canteen, then spread something from the tin over them. It stung. Clara bit her lip. "It's pine sap," Cole said. "Mixed with tallow. Old cavalry trick. Keeps wounds from going bad." He wrapped clean cloth around her foot with quick, efficient movements. Did the same with the other. "Thank you," Clara said quietly. Cole just nodded and stood. "We should keep moving." They did. The sun climbed higher, hotter. Clara's throat was dust. They'd been rationing water, but it wasn't enough. Never enough. Cole gave her his share when he thought she wasn't looking. She didn't call him on it. Around midday, they heard it. Voices. Distant, but getting closer. Cole grabbed Clara's arm and pulled her into a thicket of scrub brush. They crouched there, hardly breathing. The voices got louder. Men. 3 of them, maybe 4, moving parallel to their path, spread out in a search line. "Can't be far," one was saying. "Curtis said they went into the river just past dawn." "Curtis is an idiot," another replied. "We should have gone downstream, not up." Orders are orders. The voices faded, moved past. Cole waited a full 5 minutes before he let Clara move. When they emerged from the brush, his face was grim. "They're ahead of us," he said. "What does that mean?" "Means they're not just tracking, they're trying to box us in." He scanned the terrain. "We need to change direction, head west instead of north." "But you said Silver Ridge was north." "It is. But if we keep going that way, we'll walk right into them." Cole started moving, angling away from their original path. "We'll loop around, take longer, but we'll get there." "How much longer?" "A week, maybe more." Clara's heart sank. A week of walking, of hiding, of running. "We don't have enough food for a week." "I know." Cole didn't slow down. "We'll figure it out." They walked until the sun started to set. Claire's legs were shaking by the time Cole called a halt. They'd climbed higher, into rockier country where trees grew sparse and twisted. The wind had teeth up here. Cole found them shelter in a shallow cave. No fire this time. Too exposed. They ate the last of the dried meat in silence and huddled together for warmth. "Tell me something," Cole said after a while. Clara looked at him. "What?" "Anything. Something that's not about running or hiding or your father." He shifted, trying to get comfortable against the cave wall. "Tell me something that makes you human." Clara thought about that. "I wanted to be a teacher," she said finally. "When I was little, I used to pretend my dolls were students, made lesson plans and everything." She smiled at the memory. "My mother encouraged it, said I had a gift for explaining things. What happened?" "She died. I was 12. After that, my father said I needed to focus on being a proper lady, learning to run a household, be a good wife someday." Her smile faded. "Teachers weren't proper." "That's a damn shame," Cole said. "World needs more teachers, needs less proper ladies who know how to run a household." Clara looked at him. "You really believe that?" "Yeah, I do." He met her eyes. "What would you teach, if you could?" "Reading, writing, numbers." She pulled her knees up. "And maybe other things. Things girls don't usually learn, like how to think for themselves, how to make their own choices. Dangerous lessons. The best ones are." Cole smiled at that. Actually smiled. It changed his whole face, made him look younger, less hard. They sat in comfortable silence for a while. Then Clara said, "Your turn." "My turn? Tell me something human." Cole considered. "I wanted to build things," he said. "Still do, I guess. Not just a ranch, though that's part of it, but actual things. Houses, barns, furniture." He looked at his hands. "My father was a carpenter, taught me the trade before he died. I was good at it." "Why'd you stop?" "Needed money faster than carpentry could provide. Ranching paid better, or seemed to." He shook his head. "Turns out I wasn't much good at the business side of things. Lost everything trying to keep up with men who knew how to work the angles." "You could go back to it," Clara said. "Carpentry, I mean. Start over." "Maybe." Cole didn't sound convinced. "Hard to start over when you're pushing 40 with nothing to show for it." "You're not 40. "Close enough." Clara studied him in the dim light. The scar on his face, the lines around his eyes, the weight he carried in every movement. "You're 35, she said. "Maybe 36. And you have plenty to show for it." "Like what?" "Like knowing when to help someone who needs it. Like knowing how to survive when everything goes wrong. Like..." She stopped. "Like being the kind of person who jumps off a cliff because it's the right thing to do." Cole looked at her for a long moment. "You're an odd girl, Clara Whitmore." "I'm not a girl. I'm 20. "You're an odd woman, then." Clara smiled. "Thank you." They slept in shifts that night. When it was Clara's turn to watch, she sat at the cave entrance and looked at the stars. They were different out here. Brighter. More numerous. Like the darkness made room for more light. She thought about her father, about Curtis and Jake and the others hunting them through the wilderness, about Thomas Garrett and his cold eyes and the life she would have had if she'd stayed. Then she looked back at Cole, asleep against the cave wall with his rifle cradled in his arms. And she thought about what came next, about Silver Ridge and stagecoaches and whatever waited beyond the frontier, about being alone again, about losing the one person who'd seen her as worth saving. The thought hurt worse than her ribs. When dawn came, they moved again. West now, looping through higher country. The air was thinner here, colder. Clara's breath came in clouds. They were 2 days from anywhere, low on food, being hunted by men who wouldn't stop. But they were still moving, still free. That had to be enough. The storm came without warning on the third day. 1 minute, the sky was clear and hard as glass. The next, clouds rolled over the mountains like something alive, bringing wind that cut through wool and skin alike. Clara felt the temperature drop so fast her teeth started chattering before the first drops hit. There. Cole pointed to a stand of pines halfway up the slope. We need cover, now. They ran, or tried to. Clara's legs were past exhausted, operating on nothing but stubbornness and fear. The rain started, cold, hard, driving sideways in the wind. Within seconds, she was soaked through. Cole grabbed her hand and pulled her into the trees just as the sky opened up completely. Thunder cracked so loud Clara felt it in her chest. Lightning turned the world white. Can't stay here, Cole shouted over the noise. Trees and lightning! Another crack, closer. A pine 50 yards away exploded, top half shearing off and crashing down in a shower of sparks and smoke. Move! But Cole was already dragging her deeper into the forest, away from the tallest trees, looking for something, anything. He found it, a fallen log, massive and half-rotted, hollow underneath. Not much shelter, but better than nothing. They crawled under it just as hail started to fall. Ice the size of river stones pounding the earth around them. Clara pressed herself against the dirt, arms over her head, and tried not to think about the fact that they were going to die out here. That after everything, the saloon, the river, the days of running, it was going to end with them frozen under a log in the middle of nowhere. Hey, Cole's voice was close to her ear. Stay with me. I'm here. No, stay with me. Don't go wherever you just went in your head. Clara turned her face toward him. In the dim space under the log, she could barely see his features, but she could feel the warmth of him, solid and real. I thought we were going to make it, she said. We are going to make it. How do you know? Because I'm not done yet. His hand found hers in the darkness, held it. And neither are you. The storm raged for an hour, maybe longer. Time stopped meaning much when you were lying in mud listening to the world try to kill you, but eventually the thunder moved on. The hail turned back to rain. The rain slowed to a drizzle. When they crawled out, Clara could barely feel her fingers. Her whole body was shaking so hard her vision blurred. Cole took one look at her and swore. We need to get you warm, right now. I'm fine. You're hypothermic. He was already moving, gathering fallen branches, looking for anything dry enough to burn. Don't argue with me. Clara wanted to argue anyway. Wanted to say she could handle it, that she'd been through worse. But her jaw was locked up from shivering and the words wouldn't come. Cole found a rocky overhang 30 yards away, not quite a cave but protected from the wind. He got her under it, stripped off her wet outer layer, wrapped her in his coat even though he was soaked through too. Then he did something Clara had only seen in books. He took 2 sticks and a handful of dry bark he'd somehow kept protected in his pack, and he made fire. It took him 10 minutes. His hands were shaking too, but he got a spark, nursed it into a flame, fed it carefully until they had actual heat. Come here, he said. Clara moved closer to the fire, held her hands out to it. The warmth hurt, made her fingers sting and burn as feeling came back. Closer, Cole said. I'm close enough. He grabbed her arm, gently but firmly, and pulled her right up against him, both of them facing the fire. Your core temperature is too low. This isn't about modesty. This is about not dying. Clara was too cold to argue, too tired. She let him wrap his arms around her, let him share his body heat, and tried not to think about how strange it was. How intimate. How much she needed it. They sat like that for a long time. Long enough for Clara to stop shaking, long enough for the fire to burn down and need feeding, long enough for the sky to start clearing. Thank you, Clara said finally. Cole's arms tightened briefly, then released. You would have done the same. Would I? Yeah. He shifted, put another branch on the fire. You're tougher than you think. Clara looked at her hands. They were blistered now, raw. Nothing like the soft, carefully maintained hands her father had insisted on. I don't feel tough. Tough isn't about how you feel. It's about what you do when feeling doesn't matter anymore. Cole glanced at her. You jumped off a cliff into a river that should have killed you. You've walked 3 days on feet that are bleeding. You haven't complained once about being cold or hungry or scared. That's tough. I'm terrified. I know, being scared doesn't make you weak. Doing it anyway, that's what counts. Clara thought about that. About the difference between fear and weakness. about how her father had taught her they were the same thing, that to show fear was to invite punishment. But Cole seemed to think fear was just normal, human. "Are you scared?" she asked. Cole was quiet for a moment. "Yeah." "Of what?" "Of failing." He poked at the fire. "Of getting you this far just to lose you anyway. Of—" He stopped. "Doesn't matter. It matters to me." He looked at her then, really looked at her, and something in his expression made Clara's breath catch. "We should sleep," he said instead. "Storm's past. We need to move at first light." Clara wanted to push, wanted to know what he'd been about to say, but exhaustion was pulling at her again, dragging her down. She nodded and lay down close to the fire, using Cole's pack as a pillow. She was asleep before she could worry about the morning. When dawn came, it brought company. Clara woke to Cole's hand over her mouth and his voice in her ear, barely a whisper. "Don't move. Don't make a sound." Her eyes snapped open. Through the gap in the rocks, she could see them, 3 men on horseback, maybe 100 yards away, moving slowly along the ridge, searching. One of them was Curtis. Even at this distance, Clara recognized the way he sat a horse, the shape of him. They were so close. Too close. Cole's hand stayed over her mouth. His other hand was on his rifle, ready. They waited, silent, frozen, while the men picked their way along the ridge. One of them stopped, looked their direction. Clara's heart hammered so hard she thought it would give them away, thought the sound of it would echo across the rocks and bring Curtis down on them like a storm. But the man turned away, said something to the others. They moved on. Cole kept his hand in place for another 5 minutes. 10. Only when the riders had disappeared over the ridge did he finally let go. "That was too close," he breathed. Clara sat up. Her whole body was shaking again, but not from cold this time. "They're not giving up. No, they're not." Cole started gathering their things with quick, economical movements, which means we can't either. "Cole," Clara caught his arm. "Maybe you should go. Leave me somewhere hidden and go. They're not after you. If you're alone—" "No, but no." He looked at her. "I said I wasn't leaving you behind. I meant it. Even if it gets you killed? Even then." He shouldered his pack. "Now stop wasting time arguing and start moving. We've got maybe an hour before they circle back." They climbed higher. The terrain got worse. Loose rock, steep grades, air so thin Clara felt dizzy. Her feet were bleeding again. She could feel it in her makeshift boots, warm and wet. But she didn't say anything, just kept putting one foot in front of the other. Around midday they hit snow. Not much, just patches in the shadows where the sun never reached. But it was enough to make Clara stop and stare. Snow. In late spring. "Mountains don't care what season it is," Cole said. "Come on, we're almost to the pass." "What pass?" "The one that'll get us over to the western slope. There's a mining camp there. Abandoned now, but there'll be shelter, maybe supplies if we're lucky." Clara looked at the snow, at the gray sky promising more, at the narrow trail ahead that looked like it might crumble into nothing at any moment. "How far?" she asked. "Half a day." Cole read the doubt on her face. "I know you're tired, I know you're hurting, but if we don't make it over before dark, we'll freeze up here. And if we stay low, Curtis will find us. This is the only way." He was right. Clara hated that he was right, but he was. "Then let's go," she said. They climbed. The trail got narrower, steeper. On one side, rock face rising up forever. On the other, nothing but air and a drop that made Clara's stomach turn. She kept her eyes on Cole's back. On the path directly in front of her, anywhere but down. The wind picked up again. Not storm wind, but constant. Cold. It pushed at them, trying to shove them off the mountain. Clara's foot slipped on loose rock. Her hand shot out, grabbed the wall, held on. Small stones rattled down the cliff face, falling and falling until she couldn't hear them anymore. "Easy," Cole said. He'd stopped, was reaching back toward her. "Give me your hand." She did. His grip was solid, safe. "Don't look down," he said. "Wasn't planning on it." "Good. Just focus on me." one step at a time. They kept going, step by step, foot by foot. The trail narrowed until they were moving sideways, backs against the rock. Clara could feel the emptiness behind her like a living thing, hungry. Then the trail just ended. Clara stared at the gap in front of them, maybe 6 feet across. On the other side, the path continued, but here, the mountain had simply given up, left nothing but air. "We have to jump," Cole said. "That's insane. It's the only way across." Clara looked at the gap. 6 feet. She could jump 6 feet on flat ground. Maybe. But here, on a ledge barely wide enough to stand on, with wind trying to pull her off the mountain and her body past the point of exhaustion? "I can't," she said. "Yes, you can." "Cole, I can't. I'm not strong enough for this." He turned to face her, put his hands on her shoulders. "Listen to me. You are strong enough. You've been strong enough for every single thing we've faced. This is just one more thing. What if I don't make it? Then I'll catch you." He said it like it was simple, like there was no doubt. "But you're going to make it." Clara looked at him. At this man who'd given up everything to help a stranger, who'd jumped off a cliff and walked through storms and climbed a mountain because he'd promised not to leave her behind. "All right," she said. "All right." Cole went first. Made it look easy. Landed solid on the other side and turned back, arms out, ready. Clara took a breath. Another. Tried not to think about the drop, about how tired she was, about all the ways this could go wrong. She jumped. For a second, one perfect, terrible second, she was flying, weightless, free. Then gravity remembered her. Her feet hit the edge of the far side, hit and slipped. She was falling backwards, arms windmilling, nothing beneath her but air and death. Cole's hand closed around her wrist like iron. He hauled her forward so hard they both went down, tangled together on the narrow path. Clara's heart was trying to pound its way out of her chest. She couldn't breathe, couldn't think. "I've got you," Cole said. His arms were around her, holding her against the rock, holding her together. "I've got you." Clara pressed her face against his shoulder and tried to remember how to breathe. But you didn't." His voice was rough, shaken. "You made it." They sat there for a moment, both breathing hard. Then Cole pulled back, checked her over with quick, thorough movements. "You hurt?" "No, I don't. No." "Good." He stood, pulled her up with him. "We need to keep moving. Camp's not far now." Clara's legs felt like water, but she nodded and followed him anyway. Because what else was there to do? The mining camp appeared an hour later, just as the sun was starting to set. 3 buildings, one large, 2 small, all looking ready to collapse. But they had walls, roofs, protection from the wind. Cole checked each building carefully, rifle ready, looking for signs of occupation. Found nothing but dust and rat droppings and broken furniture. "This one," he said, indicating the largest building. "It's got a stove. Might still work." They went inside. It was dark and smelled like old wood and older decay. But it was warmer than outside. And when Cole got the stove going, using the last of his flint and some broken chair legs for fuel, it felt like paradise. Clara sank down against the wall and closed her eyes. Every part of her hurt. Every muscle, every bone, every inch of skin. She was past tired, past hungry, past everything except the simple fact of still being alive. "Here." Cole was crouching in front of her, holding out something. "Found these in the back room, canned beans, old, but the seals look good." Clara looked at the can, at Cole's face, at the fire in the stove casting dancing shadows across the walls. "We made it," she said. "We made it to the camp, still got a ways to go. But we made it this far." She took the can from him, against Curtis and the storm and a mountain that tried to kill us. "We made it." Cole smiled, just a little. "Yeah, we did." They ate the beans cold, couldn't wait for them to heat. They tasted like tin and salt and the best meal Clara had ever had. She ate slowly, making each bite count, while Cole explored the rest of the building. He came back with a blanket, moth-eaten and dusty, but whole. Found a stash of supplies in one of the other buildings. Looks like whoever worked here left in a hurry. There's more food, some tools, even some clothes that might fit you. Clothes that fit? Clara looked down at her borrowed pants and shirt, both filthy and torn. I'd forgotten what that was like. Come on, I'll show you. The supplies were in the smallest building, a storage shed looked like. Shelves lined the walls, most empty, but a few still held items. Canned food, rope, a pickaxe with a broken handle, and in the corner, a trunk. Cole opened it and pulled out a work shirt, actual pants with a button fly, boots, men's boots, but closer to Clara's size than anything she'd had yet. They're not fancy, Cole said. They're perfect. Clara took the clothes, held them against her chest. Thank you. I'll wait outside. He did, and Clara changed in the dusty shed, surrounded by the remnants of lives she'd never know. The clothes fit better than expected. Still too big, but manageable. The boots were stiff and needed breaking in, but they were whole. Had real soles. When she came out, Cole looked her over and nodded. Better. You look like you might survive this after all. Might? Let's not get ahead of ourselves. They went back to the main building and the fire. Cole had found more wood, actual lumber from what looked like a dismantled bunk. He fed it to the stove carefully, making it last. How long can we stay here? Clara asked. Not long, a day, maybe 2 if we're careful. He sat down across from her. Curtis will keep searching, and once he figures out we went over the pass, he'll head this direction. So we rest, and then we run again. Yeah. Clara was quiet for a moment. Then she said, Does it ever end? Cole looked at her. What? The running, the hiding. Does it ever just end? Eventually, one way or another. He poked at the fire through the stove grate. Either you get far enough ahead that they stop chasing, or you make a stand, or they catch you, or they catch you. Clara pulled the blanket tighter around her shoulders. My father won't stop. Not ever. You know that, right? This isn't about the engagement anymore. This is about control, about making sure I don't get away with defying him. I know. So what do we do? Cole was quiet for a long time. When he finally spoke, his voice was careful, measured. We get you somewhere safe, somewhere with law that actually means something. Denver, maybe, or San Francisco, somewhere your father's reach doesn't extend. And then? And then you build a new life, change your name, start over. He looked at her. You're smart, educated. You can do it. Alone. The word hung between them. You'll be safe, Cole said quietly. I don't want to be safe. I want to be free. Clara met his eyes. There's a difference. I know there is. Do you? She leaned forward. Because safety is being locked in a room with no windows. Safety is doing what you're told and never asking questions. I've been safe my whole life, Cole, and it almost destroyed me. Then what do you want? Clara thought about that, about what she wanted versus what was possible, about the difference between dreams and reality. I want to choose, she said finally. I want to wake up every morning and decide for myself what kind of day it's going to be. I want to teach if I want to teach, work if I want to work, stay if I want to stay, and leave if I want to leave. She paused. I want to stop running away from things and start running toward them. Cole studied her for a long moment. That's a dangerous kind of freedom. The best kind is. He smiled at that. The same word she'd said to him before, thrown back. You're going to be all right, Clara Whitmore. Clara Hayes, she said. What? If I'm starting over, I need a new name. Hayes was my mother's maiden name. I'll use that. She tried it out. Clara Hayes. Suits you better anyway. They sat in comfortable silence for a while. The fire crackled. Wind whistled through gaps in the walls. Outside, night had fallen completely, turning the world beyond their small circle of warmth into absolute darkness. Cole? Clara said after a while. Yeah? When we get to wherever we're going, when I'm safe, what will you do? He didn't answer right away, just stared into the fire like it held answers he couldn't find anywhere else. I don't know, Ita, he said finally. Head north like I planned, I guess. Find some land. Try again. Alone. Yeah, alone. Clara wanted to say something, wanted to tell him that alone wasn't the only option, that maybe, but she didn't. Because what could she offer him? She had nothing. Was nothing except a girl running from a father who wanted to own her and a future that promised only more running. So she just nodded and pulled the blanket tighter and tried not to think about what it would feel like when he left. They slept in shifts that night. When it was Clara's turn to watch, she stood at the broken window and looked out at the darkness. Somewhere out there, Curtis was still hunting, still searching, still following orders from a man who'd never learned that some things couldn't be owned. But here, in this moment, she was free. Cold and tired and scared, but free. That had to be enough. When dawn came, they packed what supplies they could carry: food, rope, a second blanket. Clara wore her new clothes and felt almost human. "Ready?" Cole asked. Clara looked around the mining camp one last time, at the buildings that had sheltered them, at the mountain pass they'd crossed, at the path ahead that led down into country she'd never seen. "Ready," she said. They started down the western slope. The descent was easier than the climb had been. The trail was wider here, less treacherous. But Clara's body was running on fumes now. Every step was an act of will. Around midday, they heard hoofbeats behind them. Cole grabbed Clara's arm and pulled her off the trail, into the rocks. They crouched there while riders passed, 3 of them this time, moving fast. Curtis was in the lead. They were ahead of them now, cutting off the path to wherever they'd been heading. "We need a new plan," Clara whispered. "I know." Cole's jaw was tight. "They're between us and Silver Ridge. If we keep going this direction, we'll walk right into them." "So what do we do?" Cole looked around. At the rocks. At the forest below. At the narrow canyon to their left that looked like it led nowhere. "We go where they won't expect," he said. "Into the canyon. Follow it as far as it goes. Find another way around." "What if there is no other way?" "Then we make one." They moved deeper into the rocks, away from the trail, into country that got rougher with every step. The canyon narrowed until they were walking single file between walls of stone that blocked out most of the sky. Water ran somewhere nearby. Clara could hear it but couldn't see it. The sound echoed off the rocks, making it impossible to tell which direction it came from. They walked for hours. The canyon twisted and turned, sometimes opening up into small clearings, sometimes narrowing until Clara had to turn sideways to fit through. Her shoulders scraped against rock. Her ribs protested every breath. Then the canyon ended. Not gradually, just ended. They rounded a bend, and there it was. A wall of rock stretching up 50 feet, sheer and unclimbable. Water fell from somewhere above, creating a small pool at the base. "Dead end," Clara said. Cole walked the perimeter of the space, looking for another way out. Found nothing. "We have to go back." "Back to where Curtis is waiting?" "We don't have a choice." But before they could move, voices echoed down the canyon, coming from the direction they'd come. Multiple voices, getting closer. They were trapped. Cole looked around frantically, at the walls, at the pool, at Clara. "Can you climb?" he asked. "That?" Clara looked at the cliff. "That's impossible." "Can you climb?" She looked at him, saw something in his face she hadn't seen before. Fear. Real fear. "I can try," she said. "Then try, because if they catch us here, we're done." Clara approached the wall, looked up. The rock was wet from the waterfall, slick and treacherous. But there were handholds, narrow ledges, cracks where roots had forced their way through stone. She reached up, grabbed, pulled. Her feet left the ground. Clara's hands found the first real hold 20 feet up, a crack in the rock where water had worn the stone away over years. She wedged her fingers in and pulled, ignoring the way her shoulders screamed. Below her, she could hear Cole climbing too, his breathing harsh and controlled. The voices in the canyon were louder now, clear enough to make out words. "Tracks end here. They've got to be close. Check behind the rocks. Curtis wants them found before nightfall." Clara climbed faster. Her foot slipped on wet stone and she hung there for a second, fingers burning, heart hammering. Then she found purchase and kept going. 30 feet, 40. The top was close now, so close. Her hand reached for the edge just as a voice below shouted, "There, on the wall!" "Don't look down, Cole said from somewhere beneath her. "Just climb." Clara pulled herself over the top and rolled onto solid ground. Her whole body was shaking. She crawled to the edge and looked down. Cole was 15 feet below, climbing steady. And at the base of the cliff, 4 men stared up. Curtis was among them, his face twisted with rage. "Shoot them!" he yelled. "Too far," one of the others said. "We'll waste ammunition." "Then climb after them." Clara watched one of the men approach the wall. He reached up, grabbed where she'd grabbed, pulled himself up a few feet. Then his hand slipped and he fell back, cursing. "It's too wet," he called up to Curtis. "We can't make it." Curtis kicked the rock wall. "Then we go around. Find where this canyon leads. They can't have gone far." The men dispersed, moving back the way they'd come. Clara watched them go, then turned to help Cole. She grabbed his arm and pulled as he hauled himself over the edge. They lay there for a moment, both gasping. "That was too close," Clara said. "They're all too close." Cole sat up, looked around. They were on a plateau of sorts, rocky ground with sparse vegetation and a view that stretched for miles. In the distance, Clara could see a settlement. Small, maybe a dozen buildings. "What's that?" she asked, pointing. Cole squinted. "Looks like Redemption Creek, or what's left of it. Used to be a silver town, played out 5 years ago." "Will there be people?" "Maybe. Probably just drifters and people with nowhere else to go." He stood, offered her his hand, but there might be supplies and information about how to get around Curtis. Clara let him pull her up. Her legs felt like they might give out any second. "How far?" 3 miles, maybe 4. She looked at the distance, at the rough terrain between here and there, at the sun already starting its descent toward the horizon. "We should go," she said, "before they find a way up." They walked. The plateau was exposed, no trees, no cover, just rock and scrub grass and the constant wind. Clara felt visible, vulnerable, like Curtis could spot them from miles away if he just looked in the right direction. But they made it to the edge of the settlement as the sun touched the horizon. Clara could see the buildings more clearly now. Most were in bad shape. Roofs caved in, walls leaning, but a few looked intact, occupied even. Smoke rose from one chimney. "Let me do the talking," Cole said as they approached. "People in places like this don't trust easy." "I wasn't planning on giving a speech. Just stay close, and if something feels wrong, we leave. Fast." They entered the town from the east, walking down what used to be a main street. The buildings on either side were hollow shells, windows broken, doors hanging crooked, signs faded to nothing. A man appeared in a doorway ahead, old, grizzled, holding a shotgun but not pointing it. Yet. "Help you?" he called out. Cole stopped at a respectful distance, kept his hands visible. "Looking for a place to rest, maybe trade for some food. We can pay." The man looked them over. His eyes lingered on Clara, on her bruised face, her too big clothes, her bare exhaustion. "You two running from something?" "Everyone's running from something," Cole said. "Question is whether you're going to help or turn us away." The old man thought about that. Then he lowered the shotgun. "Name's Silas. There's a boarding house 3 buildings down. Woman who runs it might have room." He paused. "Might also ask questions you don't want to answer." "We'll take our chances," Cole said. Silas nodded and disappeared back inside. The boarding house was one of the better preserved buildings. 2 stories, painted green once upon a time. A woman sat on the porch in a rocking chair, watching them approach. She was maybe 50, hard-faced, with eyes that didn't miss much. "You're not from around here," she said. Not a question. "No, ma'am," Cole replied. "We're looking for a room, just for the night. I've got 1 room left, $5. That includes supper." "We'll take it." The woman stood, looked at Clara. "You hurt?" Clara touched her face reflexively. The bruises were fading, but still visible. "I'm fine." "Wasn't asking if you were fine, asked if you were hurt." The woman's voice was flat. "There's a difference." "I was hurt," Clara said carefully. I'm better now. The woman studied her for another moment. Then she nodded. Name's Ruth. Follow me. The room was small but clean. 2 beds, a washstand, a window that overlooked the street. Ruth brought them water and soap and told them supper would be in an hour. Thank you, Clara said. Ruth paused at the door. Whatever you're running from, or whoever, you're safe here tonight. This town doesn't have much, but we look after our own, and anyone who needs looking after. She glanced at Cole, even if it's just for one night. After she left, Clara sank onto one of the beds. The mattress was thin and lumpy, but it felt like heaven. She wanted to cry with relief. We got lucky, Cole said. He was at the window watching the street. You think they'll find us here? Eventually, but not tonight. He turned. Get some rest. I'll wake you when it's time to eat. Clara wanted to argue, wanted to take a watch, share the burden, but sleep was already pulling at her, heavy and irresistible. She woke to Cole's hand on her shoulder and the smell of food. Her stomach clenched with hunger so fierce it hurt. Come on, Cole said, before it gets cold. Supper was in a common room downstairs. 6 people sat at a long table, Ruth, Silas, 3 men Clara didn't recognize, and a young woman about her age with a baby on her hip. They all looked up when Clara and Cole entered. Sit, Ruth said, gesturing to 2 empty chairs. We don't stand on ceremony here. The food was simple, stew and bread, but it was hot and there was plenty of it. Clara tried to eat slowly, tried to show some manners, failed completely. She couldn't help it. This was the first real meal she'd had in days. No one spoke much during the meal, but Clara could feel them watching, assessing. The way Cole had said, people in places like this didn't trust easy. After, when the dishes were cleared, Ruth brought out coffee, real coffee, strong and bitter. Clara wrapped her hands around the cup and felt warmth seep into her bones. So, one of the men said. He was younger than the others, maybe 30, with a scar across his chin. What brings you to Redemption Creek? Passing through, Cole said. Long way to pass through. Not much reason to come this direction unless you're looking for something, or running from it. Like Silas said, Cole replied, everyone's running from something. The man smiled. It wasn't friendly. True enough. Question is what happens when what you're running from catches up. Depends on what it is, Cole said evenly. The tension in the room tightened. Clara set down her coffee cup carefully, ready to move if she needed to. That's enough, Jack, Ruth said. These folks are guests, and we treat guests with respect. Jack shrugged. Just making conversation. Make it elsewhere. He stood, gave Cole a long look, then left. The other 2 men followed. After they were gone, Ruth sighed. Don't mind Jack. He's suspicious of everyone. Comes from getting robbed 3 times in 1 year. Understandable, Cole said. Still rude. Ruth poured herself more coffee. You planning to stay long? Just tonight. We'll be gone by morning. Where are you headed? Clara and Cole exchanged a glance. West, Clara said. Looking for work. Ruth looked at her, through her. You're running from a man. It wasn't a question. Clara felt her throat tighten. How did you? Because I ran from one too, 20 years ago. Ruth's voice was matter-of-fact. Husband, good man when he was sober, devil when he wasn't. Finally got tired of explaining the bruises. She tapped the rim of her cup. Came here, built this place, never looked back. Did he come after you? Clara asked. He tried. Made it as far as the edge of town before Silas and some others convinced him to leave. Ruth smiled grimly. He didn't try again. We're not that lucky, Clara said quietly. The man after me. He won't be convinced, won't stop. Then you keep running until he can't follow, or you make a stand. Ruth met Clara's eyes. Either way you decide. Not him. That's the important part. Clara thought about that. About choice. About the difference between running away and running toward something. Thank you, she said. Ruth nodded. Get some rest. Morning comes early, and if you need supplies for the road, let me know. I can spare some. Back in their room, Clara stood at the window and looked out at the darkened street. The moon was rising, nearly full now, bright enough to cast shadows. She's right. You know, Cole said from behind her. Clara turned. About what? About it being your choice. About you deciding what comes next. Is it, though? My choice? Clara wrapped her arms around herself. Feels like I'm just reacting, running from one thing to the next, no plan, no future, just survival. Survival is a plan, and it's more than a lot of people have. Cole moved to stand beside her, but she's also right that eventually you'll have to decide. Keep running or make a stand. What would you do if you were me? I'm not you. That's not an answer. Cole was quiet for a moment. I'd run until I couldn't anymore, until I'd put enough distance between me and him that he couldn't reach me even if he wanted to. Then I'd build something that was mine, that he could never touch. And if he followed anyway, then I'd fight. Cole's voice was flat, final, because some things are worth fighting for, even when you're scared. Clara looked at him, at this man who'd become everything she hadn't known she needed, protector, friend, something else she didn't have words for yet. What about you? She asked. What are you running from? Cole didn't answer right away. When he did, his voice was careful. Failure, the past, the weight of all the choices I made that led to... He stopped. It doesn't matter. It matters to me. He looked at her then, really looked at her, and something in his expression made Clara's breath catch. I told you about my sister, he said finally. What I didn't tell you was that I knew, before I left for that job, I knew the man who was coming around was trouble. I could see it in the way he looked at her, the things he said, but I needed the money. Needed it so bad I convinced myself it would be fine, that she'd be fine. His jaw tightened. I was wrong. That wasn't your fault. Wasn't it? I chose money over her safety, chose my own future over hers. That's on me. Always will be. Clara wanted to argue, wanted to tell him he was being too hard on himself, but she could see the weight of it in his eyes. The guilt he carried like a stone. Is that why you helped me? She asked. To make up for her? Maybe. At first. He turned back to the window. But somewhere along the way, it stopped being about her and started being about you. About Clara Whitmore. Hayes, who's tougher than she knows and braver than she thinks she is. Clara's throat tightened. I'm not brave. You jumped off a cliff. Because you said to. You climbed a wall with men shooting at you. Because I didn't have a choice. You walked into a saloon bleeding and alone and asked for help when asking could have gotten you killed. Cole looked at her. That's brave, Clara. Choosing to live when dying would have been easier. That's the bravest thing there is. Clara didn't know what to say to that, didn't trust her voice, so she just nodded and looked out at the night and tried to believe him. They slept in shifts again that night. When it was Clara's turn to watch, she sat by the window and thought about what came next. About Silver Ridge and stagecoaches and cities where her father's name meant nothing. About starting over with a new name and a new life. About saying goodbye to Cole. The thought hurt more than she wanted to admit. She woke him when the sky started to lighten. They gathered their things, such as they were, and went downstairs. Ruth was already up, had coffee brewing and bread on the table. I packed you some supplies, she said, gesturing to a bundle on the counter. Bread, dried meat, coffee grounds. It's not much, but it'll get you a few days down the road. You don't have to, Clara started. I know I don't have to. I'm doing it anyway. Ruth handed her the bundle. There's a trail west of here, follows the creek for about 10 miles, then splits. North goes to Silver Ridge. South goes to the railroad. Your choice which way to go. Thank you, Clara said. For everything. Ruth nodded. Then she pulled Clara aside, spoke quietly so Cole couldn't hear. That man of yours. He's good. Damaged, but good. Don't let him go just because you think you should. He's not we're not... I've got eyes, girl. I see how he looks at you. How you look at him. Ruth squeezed her arm. Life's too short to let fear make your choices for you. Before Clara could respond, Ruth was gone, back to her kitchen. They left as the sun broke over the horizon. The town was quiet. No one else stirring yet. Just them and the empty street and the promise of distance. The trail Ruth had mentioned was easy to find, well-worn, following the creek just like she'd said. They walked in silence for the first hour. Clara's mind kept circling back to what Ruth had said. About choice. About fear. About Cole. "Can I ask you something?" she said finally. "Sure. When we get to Silver Ridge, when I'm safe, you're really going to just leave?" Cole's stride didn't falter. That was the plan. Was. He didn't answer right away. When he did, his voice was careful. "I don't know anymore." Clara's heart beat faster. "What changed?" "You did. This did." He gestured between them. "I've spent 4 years trying not to care about anything, trying not to let anyone close enough to matter. It's easier that way, safer. But somewhere between the saloon and here, you started to matter." He stopped walking, turned to face her, "And I don't know what to do with that." Clara looked at him. At this man who'd saved her life more times than she could count, who'd shared his food and his warmth and his story, who looked at her like she was worth something beyond her father's name or her value as property. "Then don't leave," she said quietly. "Clara, I know it's complicated. I know we barely know each other. I know there are 1,000 reasons why it's a bad idea." She took a breath. "But I also know that for the first time in my life, I feel like I can breathe. And a lot of that is because of you." Cole's expression was unreadable. "You think you feel that way because I helped you, because I was there when you needed someone. But once you're safe, once you have time to think clearly, you'll realize—" "Don't tell me what I'll realize." Clara stepped closer. "Don't decide for me what I think or feel or need. I've had enough of that for one lifetime. I'm trying to do the right thing here. The right thing is letting me choose, even if my choice is you." The silence stretched between them. Cole looked torn, like he wanted to reach for her but couldn't let himself, like he was fighting a battle Clara couldn't see. "What if I can't protect you?" he said finally. "What if Curtis catches up and I'm not fast enough or strong enough, or then we face it together, like we've faced everything else?" Clara held his gaze. "I'm not asking you to be perfect. I'm asking you to stay." Cole closed his eyes. When he opened them again, something had shifted, resolved. "All right," he said. "All right." Clara felt something loosen in her chest. Relief. Hope. Something that felt dangerously close to happiness. But before she could say anything else, a voice called out from behind them. "Well, isn't this touching?" They spun around. Curtis stood 30 yards back on the trail. He wasn't alone. Jake was with him, and 2 others Clara didn't recognize, all armed, all between them and the way back to Redemption Creek. "Been following your tracks since dawn," Curtis said conversationally. "You're not hard to trail once you know where to look." He started walking toward them, slow, confident. "Now here's how this is going to work. Clara, you're going to come with us, quiet and peaceful, and your friend here gets to walk away, make a fuss, and we kill him right here." Clara's hand found Cole's, held tight. "Not going to happen," Cole said. Curtis sighed. "Figured you'd say that. Shame. I was hoping we could do this civil." "There's nothing civil about dragging a woman back to a man who beats her. That's between her and her father, not my concern." Curtis drew his pistol. "Last chance. Step aside or we go through you." Cole's hand went to his rifle, but Clara could see the math as clearly as he could. 4 armed men versus 1. Even if Cole was fast, and he was, he couldn't take them all. Not before they killed him. "Don't," she said quietly. "Clara Fu, please." She looked at him. At this man she'd somehow come to care about more than her own safety. "Don't die for me. Not like this. I'm not letting them take you. You don't have a choice. There's always a choice." Curtis cocked his pistol. "Time's up. Decide." Clara made the decision for both of them. She let go of Cole's hand and stepped toward Curtis. "I'll come with you. Just don't hurt him." "No!" Cole grabbed for her, but she pulled away. "It's all right. she said. Tried to mean it. It's all right. It wasn't all right. Nothing about this was all right. But she couldn't watch Cole die. Couldn't let him sacrifice himself for a fight he couldn't win. Curtis smiled. Smart girl. Jake? Tie her hands. Jake moved forward with rope. Clara held out her wrists and tried not to shake as he bound them. The rope was rough. Too tight. It didn't matter. Cole stood frozen, his face a mask of rage and helplessness. We'll take good care of her, Curtis said mockingly. Your father's waiting, Clara. He's very eager to see you. The word sent ice down Clara's spine. Her father. Waiting. Planning whatever punishment he'd deemed appropriate for her defiance. Look at me, Cole said. Clara did. This isn't over, he said. His voice was steel. Promise. You hear me? This isn't over. Ooh, Curtis laughed. Yeah, it is, friend. You lost. He grabbed Clara's arm. Let's go. We've got ground to cover. They dragged her away. Clara looked back once, saw Cole standing there on the trail, hands clenched, fury and anguish warring on his face. Then Curtis yanked her forward, and she stumbled, and when she looked back again, Cole was gone. They rode for 3 hours before Curtis let them stop. Clara's wrists were raw from the rope, her shoulders aching from being pulled behind Jake's horse. They'd taken her boots, said she couldn't run as easy barefoot. They were right. Curtis dismounted and walked over to where Jake had dumped Clara on the ground. Water, he said, tossing her a canteen. Clara caught it awkwardly with her bound hands. Drank. The water was warm and tasted like metal, but she didn't care. Your friend, Curtis said, crouching in front of her. The one with the scar. He'll come after you. It wasn't a question. Clara didn't answer. I'm counting on it, actually. Curtis smiled. Makes things easier. We set up camp, wait for him to show, put a bullet in him when he does. Clean. Simple. He's smarter than that. Maybe, but he cares about you, and caring makes people stupid. Curtis stood. We'll find out soon enough. They made camp in a clearing surrounded by rocks. Defensive position, limited approaches, good sight lines. Curtis wasn't taking chances. He posted Jake and one of the others as lookouts while he built a fire. Clara sat with her back against a boulder and tried to think, tried to plan, but her mind kept circling back to the look on Cole's face when they'd taken her, the promise in his voice. This isn't over. But what could he do? 1 man against 4. Even if he was careful, even if he was smart, the odds were impossible. Unless he didn't come at all. Unless he took Curtis's offer and walked away. Headed north like he'd always planned. Left her to face whatever came next alone. The thought made her throat tight. Not because she blamed him. She didn't. He'd done more than anyone had a right to ask. Had risked everything for a stranger. If he chose to save himself now, that was his choice to make. Hungry? Curtis asked, offering her dried meat. Clara took it, ate mechanically. The food sat like stones in her stomach. Your father's going to be relieved, Curtis said conversationally. Been worried sick about you. Thought maybe you died in that river. He wasn't worried. He was angry. Same thing sometimes. No, Clara said quietly. It's really not. Curtis shrugged. Not my business either way. I just bring you back. What happens after? That's between you and him. You know what happens after. You've seen the bruises. Like I said, not my business. Clara looked at him, at this man who'd chosen money over morality, who could look at her face and still hand her over to the person who'd done that to her. Does it ever bother you? She asked. The things you do for money? Curtis's expression didn't change. Everyone's got to make a living. That's not an answer. It's the only one you're getting. He stood. Get some rest. We ride at dawn. Clara lay down on the hard ground and stared at the stars. Thought about her father's house. About the locked rooms and the heavy silence and the future that waited for her there. Marriage to Thomas Garrett. Or worse, punishment for having run at all. For having defied Marcus Whitmore in a way that couldn't be ignored or controlled. She thought about Cole, about his scarred face and his quiet strength, and the way he'd looked at her like she mattered, like she was worth saving. She thought about Ruth's words. Life's too short to let fear make your choices for you. Clara closed her eyes. and started planning. The attack came just before dawn. Clara woke to gunfire, sharp cracks that split the silence. Curtis was on his feet, rifle raised, shouting orders. Jake rolled behind cover. The other two men scrambled for their weapons. More shots, coming from the rocks above the camp. Clara couldn't see the shooter, but she knew with absolute certainty. Cole. There! Curtis pointed toward a ridge to the east. Fired. The shot echoed off stone. Return fire kicked up dirt near Curtis's feet. He dove behind a boulder, cursing. How many? Jake yelled. Can't tell. At least two. Two. Claire's heart lifted. He'd found help. Somehow, Cole had found reinforcements. The gunfight continued, sporadic bursts of fire from both sides. Curtis and his men were pinned down, couldn't advance without exposing themselves. But they couldn't retreat either, not without leaving Clara behind. Which meant this was a standoff, and standoffs favored whoever had more ammunition. Clara didn't think that was Cole. She worked at the ropes around her wrists. Curtis had tied them tight, but not expertly. There was a little give if she twisted right. She pulled, felt the rope bite into skin, pulled harder. A bullet whined past Curtis's head and he ducked. Flank them! He shouted to the others. Circle around from the south. Two of the men moved, keeping low, disappeared into the rocks. That left Curtis and Jake. Two on, Clara still wasn't sure. Wasn't, maybe two. Maybe just Cole firing from different positions to seem like more. She got one hand free. The rope fell away and she flexed her fingers, trying to get feeling back. Her wrists were bleeding, but she barely noticed. Clara, Curtis's voice cut through the gunfire. Tell your friend to stand down or we kill him. Clara didn't answer. Was already moving, scrambling behind the rocks, away from the camp, away from Curtis. Clara! She ran, barefoot across sharp stone, legs pumping, lungs burning. Behind her, Curtis shouted something, but she couldn't make out the words over the blood pounding in her ears. A hand grabbed her arm and she screamed, twisted, tried to fight. It's me! Cole's voice, Cole's face. It's me! Clara nearly collapsed with relief. You came. Did you think I wouldn't? He pulled her behind a boulder, checked her over quickly. You hurt? No, you. Not yet. He handed her a pistol. You know how to use this? Clara looked at the gun in her hands. Heavy, cold, deadly. I've never... Point and pull the trigger. That's all you need to know. Cole raised his rifle, fired toward the camp. We need to move. They'll circle around soon. There's 4 of them. I know. And you came anyway. Cole looked at her. Of course I did. Something in Clara's chest cracked open, but there wasn't time to examine it. Curtis's men were spreading out, trying to flank them. They needed to move. They ran higher into the rocks, Cole leading the way. He moved like he knew the terrain, must have scouted it before the attack, found the best positions, the best escape routes. Where's your help? Clara asked. What help? I heard 2 shooters. Cole smiled grimly. You heard me. I've been moving between positions. Makes them think there's more of us. That's insane. That's all I had. They reached a narrow gap between 2 massive boulders. Cole pushed Clara through first, followed right behind. On the other side, the land dropped away sharply, a steep slope covered in loose rock. We can't go down that, Clara said. We don't have a choice. Shots rang out behind them, close, too close. Cole grabbed Clara's hand. Slide. Use your feet to control speed. Don't try to stand. Then he pulled her over the edge. They slid down the slope in a shower of rocks and dust. Clara's feet scrambled for purchase, found none. She was falling and sliding at the same time, the world tilting sickeningly. Rocks tore at her clothes, scraped her skin. They hit the bottom hard. Clara rolled, came up coughing. Cole was already on his feet, pulling her up, moving again. Behind them, Curtis appeared at the top of the slope, raised his rifle. Cole shoved Clara behind a tree just as the shot rang out. Bark exploded where her head had been a second before. Run! Cole shouted. They ran. The forest was thick here, pines and aspens so close together they blocked most of the light. Clara's feet were torn up, bleeding, but she didn't stop. Couldn't stop. She could hear Curtis and his men behind them crashing through the undergrowth. Cole led them deeper into the trees, then suddenly veered left, toward the sound of water. They burst out of the forest onto the bank of a river, fast water, white rapids. "No," Clara said, "not again. It's the only way to lose them." "Cole?" He was already wading in, held out his hand. "Trust me." Clara looked at the river, at the rocks and the current and the very real possibility of drowning. Then she looked at Curtis emerging from the trees behind them. She took Cole's hand. They waded in until the water was waist deep. The current pulled at them, trying to drag them downstream. Cole held tight to Clara's hand and to a half-submerged log, working their way across. Curtis reached the bank, raised his rifle, aimed. Cole pulled Clara under the log just as the shot rang out. They surfaced on the other side, gasping. Curtis fired again, but they were moving with the current now, putting distance between them. The river carried them a quarter-mile before Cole found a place to get out, a bend where the water slowed and pooled. They dragged themselves onto the bank and lay there, soaked and shaking. "Are you all right?" Cole asked. Clara checked herself. Cut feet, scraped hands, bruised ribs screaming, but alive. "Yeah, you?" "Same." They sat up, looked back the way they'd come. No sign of Curtis yet, but he'd be coming, would cross the river, would keep tracking. "We can't keep running," Clara said. "I know." "He's not going to stop. None of them are. Not as long as my father's paying them." "I know that too." Clara looked at Cole. At this man who jumped into a river for the second time to save her, who'd attacked a camp of 4 armed men single-handed, who kept choosing her over safety. "What do we do?" she asked. Cole was quiet for a long moment. When he spoke, his voice was careful. "We finish this, one way or another. How?" "We go back to Dry Creek, face your father, end it." Clara felt her blood go cold. "That's suicide. He'll kill us both." "Maybe, but it's the only way you're ever really free." Cole met her eyes. "We can keep running, put more miles between you and him. Maybe you make it to California. Maybe you don't. But either way, you'll spend the rest of your life looking over your shoulder, wondering when he'll find you, if he'll find you." He paused. "Or we face him now, in a place where there are witnesses, where what he does has consequences. He owns that town. There are no consequences. Then we make some." Clara wanted to argue, wanted to say it was impossible, that facing Marcus Whitmore was death. But she was so tired of running, so tired of being afraid. And some part of her, the part that had walked into that saloon bleeding and desperate, knew Cole was right. Running wasn't freedom. It was just a longer cage. "All right," she said. "We go back." They walked through the day and into the night, staying off trails, moving through country rough enough that Curtis would have trouble tracking. Cole led them in a wide arc, away from Dry Creek at first, then gradually curving back toward it from an unexpected direction. They didn't talk much, didn't need to. The decision had been made. All that was left was following through. As they walked, Clara thought about her father, about the man who'd raised her with one hand and hurt her with the other, who'd taught her that love meant control and defiance meant punishment, who'd tried to sell her to settle his debts and called it being a good father. She thought about her mother, the woman who'd encouraged her dreams and then died, leaving Clara alone with a man who saw her as property. She thought about the girl she'd been, quiet, obedient, desperate to please, and the woman she was becoming, scarred, angry, done being afraid. By the time they could see Dry Creek in the distance, the sun was setting. The town looked the same as it had when Clara had fled. Small, dusty, controlled. Her father's kingdom. "We wait until morning," Cole said. "Go in during the day when there are people on the streets. Witnesses." "What's the plan?" "We walk straight to the sheriff's office, file a complaint, make it official." Cole looked at her. "Your father will come. When he does, you tell everyone what he did, what he's been doing. You make them see. And if they don't care, then we leave, together, head to the territorial marshal. Make enough noise that someone has to listen." It was a thin plan, fragile, depending on too many variables they couldn't control. But it was something, more than running, more than hiding. They spent the night in an abandoned barn at the edge of town. No fire, no food, just waiting for dawn and whatever it brought. Clara couldn't sleep. She sat against the barn wall and watched Cole clean his rifle by moonlight. Methodical, practiced, preparing for violence while hoping to avoid it. "Thank you," she said quietly. Cole looked up. "For what?" "For coming back. For not leaving me with Curtis." "I told you I wouldn't leave you behind." "I know, but you could have. Would have been safer." Safety isn't everything. Cole set down his rifle. Sometimes doing the right thing matters more. Even if it gets you killed, even then. Clara thought about that, about the difference between existing and living, between safety and freedom, about all the ways fear could become its own kind of prison. "I'm scared," she admitted. "Good. Means you're smart." Cole moved to sit beside her. "But being scared doesn't mean you can't do it. Just means you're doing it anyway." "Is that what courage is?" "That's exactly what courage is." They sat in comfortable silence for a while. Then Clara said, "What happens after, if we make it through tomorrow?" "What do you want to happen?" Clara thought about that, about the future she'd imagined versus the future that might actually be possible. "I want to teach," she said. "I want to help girls who don't think they have choices understand that they do. I want to—" She paused. "I want to build something. Something that's mine." "Then that's what you'll do." "And you?" Cole was quiet. "I don't know. Haven't let myself think that far ahead." "Why not?" "Because wanting things and losing them hurts too much. Easier not to want anything at all." Clara looked at him, at the scars on his face and the ones she couldn't see. "That's not living. That's just surviving." "Maybe surviving is enough." "Is it?" She shifted to face him fully. "Because from where I'm sitting, you've been dead for 4 years, just walking around waiting for it to be official." Cole flinched. "That's true, and you know it." Claire's voice was gentle but firm. "Your sister died. That's a tragedy. But you're still alive, and refusing to live because she can't, that doesn't honor her. It just means you both got buried." The silence stretched between them, heavy, painful. "I don't know how," Cole said finally. His voice was rough. "I don't know how to stop seeing her face, stop hearing—" He stopped. "I failed her. How do I move past that?" "You don't move past it. You carry it. But you carry it forward, not in circles." Clara reached for his hand. She'd want you to live, to build something, to be happy, wouldn't she? Cole's jaw worked. "Yeah, she would." "Then live. Not for her. Not for me. For yourself." Cole looked at their joined hands, at Clara's face, bruised but healing, determined but scared, strong but fragile. All the contradictions that made her human. "All right," he said quietly. "All right." Dawn came too fast and not fast enough. They left the barn as the sun broke over the horizon, walking openly down the main street of Dry Creek. People stared. Clara in her torn clothes and bare feet, Cole with his rifle and his scarred face. But no one stopped them. The sheriff's office was at the end of the street. Small building, barred windows, the smell of old coffee and older crimes. Clara pushed open the door. Sheriff Hayes, no relation, unfortunate name, looked up from his desk. His eyes went wide. "Clara Whitmore, we thought you were dead. Not dead, just gone." Clara walked to his desk, planted her hands on it. "I'm here to file a complaint against my father, Marcus Whitmore, for assault, for attempted forced marriage, for—" The door behind them opened. Clara didn't need to turn around to know who it was, could feel his presence like a weight on her back. "Clara," her father's voice, controlled, careful. "Thank heavens you're safe. We've been so worried." She turned, looked at Marcus Whitmore for the first time in over a week. He looked the same, tall, well-dressed, commanding. The kind of man people listened to, respected, feared. He looked at her bruised face and showed nothing. No guilt, no shame, just cold assessment. "Sheriff, I'll take my daughter home now," Marcus said. "She's been through quite an ordeal, needs rest." "She's not going anywhere with you," Cole said. Marcus's eyes shifted to Cole, dismissed him. "This is a family matter. It doesn't concern you. It concerns me plenty." "Sheriff," Marcus said, ignoring Cole, "this man kidnapped my daughter. I want him arrested." Sheriff Hayes looked uncertain. "Now, Marcus, let's not be hasty. He took her from my home, held her against her will for over a week. That's kidnapping, clear as day." "That's a lie," Clara said. Her voice was steady, stronger than she felt. "I went willingly. I ran from you, from what you were going to do to me." Marcus's expression didn't change. "You're confused, daughter, distraught. That man," he gestured at Cole, "he's filled your head with nonsense." "Look at my face," Clara said. "Look at it and tell me I'm confused." For the first time, Marcus's mask slipped, just for a second. Clara saw it, anger tightly controlled. "You fell. Don't you remember? Down the stairs. I told you to be more careful." "I didn't fall. You hit me. You've been hitting me for years." "That's a serious accusation," Sheriff Hayes said quietly. "It's the truth," Clara said, "and I'm not the only one who knows it. Ask Sarah Miller, ask Tom Chen at the general store, ask anyone who's seen me over the past 3 years. They've all seen the bruises." Marcus's jaw tightened. Accidents happen. Clara has always been clumsy. "Stop lying." Clara's voice cracked. "Just stop. I'm not going back with you. I'm not marrying Thomas Garrett. I'm done. You're my daughter. You'll do as I say." "No." The word came out strong, final. "I won't. You don't own me. You never did." The room went silent. Marcus looked at the sheriff. "Are you going to let her talk to me this way?" Hayes shifted uncomfortably. "Marcus, if there's truth to what she's saying, there isn't." Marcus's voice went hard. "My daughter is upset. She's been through a traumatic experience. She needs to come home where she can be properly cared for." "She's not going anywhere," Cole said again. Marcus finally looked at him. Really looked at him. "And who exactly are you?" "Someone who's done running." Marcus smiled. It was cold. "You're the drifter who's been working odd jobs. Harland, isn't it? I know your story. Failed rancher, dead sister, pathetic man trying to play hero." Cole's hand tightened on his rifle, but he didn't rise to the bait. "Sheriff," Marcus said, "I'm pressing charges, kidnapping, assault, interference with my family affairs. I want this man arrested." Hayes looked torn. Clara could see it on his face, the desire to do what was right warring with fear of Marcus Whitmore's power. "There's one other thing," Clara said. "Curtis and the men you hired, they tried to kill us. Multiple times. Cole has witnesses. People in Redemption Creek who saw us, who can testify." "Curtis was trying to rescue you from a kidnapper," Marcus said smoothly. "Any force used was necessary and justified." "They shot at me," Clara said. "Your own daughter. Curtis put a bullet through my sleeve like—" She held up her arm, showed the torn fabric. "That's not rescue. That's murder." Marcus's expression finally cracked. Anger flashed through, hot and violent. Just for a second. Then it was buried again. But Clara had seen it, the sheriff had seen it, and most importantly, the people who'd gathered outside the office, drawn by the commotion, had seen it too. "I want a lawyer," Clara said. "I want my case heard by the territorial judge. I want everything documented, every bruise, every threat, every time you locked me in my room or hit me or told me I was property." Her voice was steel now. "I want the world to know exactly what kind of man Marcus Whitmore really is." The crowd outside murmured. Clara could see them through the window. Shopkeepers, farmers, people who'd lived under her father's thumb for years. People who'd seen things but said nothing because speaking up was dangerous. Marcus saw them too, saw his control slipping. "You ungrateful!" He lunged toward Clara. Cole stepped between them, rifle raised. "That's far enough." Marcus stopped, looked at the rifle, at Cole's face, at the crowd watching through the windows. "You're making a mistake," he said to Clara. "Both of you. I'll ruin you. I'll make sure neither of you works again, that no one will help you. You'll have nothing." "Then we'll have nothing together," Cole said, "which is more than you'll ever have." Marcus's face went purple with rage, but he couldn't do anything. Not here, not with witnesses. Not with the sheriff watching and the crowd growing and his carefully constructed facade crumbling. "This isn't over," he said. "Yes, it is," Claire replied. "I'm done being afraid of you. Done letting you control my life. You don't own me. You never did." She straightened. "I'm Clara Hayes now, and Clara Hayes doesn't have a father." Something in Marcus broke then. Clara could see it in his eyes. The moment he realized he'd lost, that all his power, all his money, all his carefully cultivated control meant nothing against a daughter who'd finally found the courage to say no. He turned and walked out without another word. The crowd parted for him, but Clara noticed something as he passed. People didn't lower their eyes like they used to, didn't step back in fear. They just watched, judged, saw him for what he really was. After he was gone, Sheriff Hayes let out a long breath. "That was the bravest thing I've ever seen." "Or the stupidest," Clara said. Her legs were shaking. Now that it was over, the adrenaline was draining away, leaving her hollow. Sometimes they're the same thing. Hayes looked at Cole. "You planning to stay in Dry Creek?" "No, sir." "Good. Marcus will come after you both if you do. He'll use the law, use money, use whatever he can, but if you're out of his jurisdiction," Hayes shrugged, "nothing he can do." "We'll leave today," Cole said. "I'll write up your statement first," Hayes said to Clara. "Get everything official. That way, if Marcus tries anything, there's a record, documentation." Clara nodded, gave her statement, every detail, every bruise, every locked door. It took 2 hours. When she was done, her hand was cramping and her throat was raw, but she felt lighter, like she'd set down a weight she'd been carrying so long she'd forgotten it was there. They left the sheriff's office to find Ruth waiting outside. She had a bag with her, food and supplies. "Heard what happened," she said. "Figured you'd need provisions for the road." "How did you—" Clara started. "News travels fast in small towns, especially news this big." Ruth handed Cole the bag. "There's also some money in there. Not much, but enough to get you started wherever you're headed." "We can't accept," Clara began. "You can and you will." Ruth's voice was firm. "Someone helped me once when I needed it. Now I'm helping you. That's how this works." Clara felt tears sting her eyes. "Thank you." Ruth pulled her into a quick embrace. "You did good today. Took more courage than most people have. Be proud of that." They left Dry Creek that afternoon, walked out the same way they'd walked in, together, battered, alive. This time, no one chased them. The road west was long and dusty. Clara's feet hurt, her body hurt, everything hurt, but she'd never felt freer in her life. "Where should we go?" she asked. Cole thought about it. "Silver Ridge is still an option, or we could head to Denver, San Francisco. Anywhere, really. Anywhere." Clara tested the word, liked the taste of it. "I've never had anywhere before, just where I was told to be." "Now you get to choose." Clara looked at him, at this man who'd saved her and been saved by her in return, who'd found a reason to live again somewhere between the saloon and here. "What about that land in Montana, Schwam?" she asked. "The place you wanted to start over." "What about it?" "Could it fit 2 people? If one of them wanted to teach and the other wanted to build things?" Cole stopped walking, looked at her. "You asking what I think you're asking?" "That depends on what you think I'm asking." "Clara, I know it's fast. I know we barely know each other. I know there are 1,000 reasons why it might not work." She met his eyes. "But I also know that I'm tired of being afraid, tired of choosing safe over happy. And with you, for the first time in my life, I feel like I could be both." Cole was quiet for a long moment. When he spoke, his voice was rough with emotion. "I'm not an easy man to be with. I've got scars, inside and out. I'll probably mess this up more times than I get it right. I've got scars too, and I'll definitely mess up, probably spectacularly." Clara smiled. But maybe we can mess up together. Cole laughed. Actually, laughed. It changed his whole face, made him look years younger. That's the worst sales pitch I've ever heard. Is it working? Yeah, it is. He kissed her then, gentle and careful, like she was something precious, something worth protecting, worth choosing. When they pulled apart, Clara felt like she could breathe for the first time in years. Like the world had opened up and shown her all the possibilities that existed outside the cage she'd been born into. Montana, she said. Let's go to Montana. They walked until they reached a small town with a stage depot. Used the money Ruth had given them to buy 2 tickets north. Sat on a bench waiting for the coach and watching the sunset over country neither of them had ever seen before. What will you build first, Wow? Clara asked. When we get there? A house. Small but solid. Something that'll last. Cole looked at her. What will you teach first? That girls have choices. That their lives are their own. That being afraid doesn't make you weak. It makes you human. Clara leaned against his shoulder. That running toward something is better than running away from it. Good lessons. The best kind usually are. The stage arrived as full dark fell. They climbed aboard, just 2 more travelers heading somewhere new, starting over, starting fresh. As the coach pulled away, Clara looked back at the town behind them. Somewhere beyond it was Dry Creek. Her father. The life she'd left behind. She felt no urge to return. No regret for what she'd abandoned. Only relief that she'd finally found the courage to leave. Cole's hand found hers in the darkness, held it. And Clara understood something she hadn't before. That freedom wasn't a place you arrived at. It was a choice you made, every day, every moment, choosing to live rather than merely exist, choosing to fight rather than surrender, choosing love over fear. They rode through the night toward a future neither could fully see, but they rode toward it together. And somehow, that was enough. Montana was cold when they arrived 3 weeks later. Autumn coming on early, the air sharp with the promise of winter. They found land outside a town called Stillwater, 20 acres bordered by a creek and backed by mountains that looked like they held up the sky. Cole built their house with his own hands. Clara helped, learned to use a hammer to measure wood, to understand the satisfaction of creating something from nothing. It took them through fall and into winter. The house wasn't fancy, wasn't large, but it was theirs, built by their own labor, standing on land they owned. Clara started teaching that spring. Just a few students at first, daughters of farmers and shopkeepers who wanted more for their children than the frontier typically offered. She taught them reading and writing and numbers, taught them to question, to think, to choose. Some people in Stillwater didn't approve, said Clara was filling girls' heads with dangerous ideas, making them dissatisfied with their proper roles. Clara smiled and kept teaching, watched her students grow more confident, more certain of their own worth. Cole built furniture to sell, found he had a talent for it. The same patience and precision that had made him a good rancher made him a better carpenter. People came from 3 towns over to buy his chairs, his tables, his carefully crafted beds. They built a life. Not perfect. Nothing ever is. There were hard winters when money was tight, sick animals, crop failures, days when the past felt too heavy to carry and the future looked too uncertain to bear. But they carried it together. And on the bad days, when fear crept back in and tried to make them small again, they reminded each other of something important. They'd already survived the worst. Everything else was just details. 5 years after they left Dry Creek, a letter arrived. Clara recognized the handwriting on the envelope. Sheriff Hayes. She opened it with shaking hands. Inside was a brief note and a newspaper clipping. The note read, "Thought you should know. Justice came slow, but it came. You're free now, truly free." The clipping was an obituary. Marcus Whitmore, dead at 57. Heart attack, the article said. But between the lines, Clara could read the truth. A man consumed by his own rage and bitterness, destroyed by his inability to control the one thing he'd thought was his to own. Clara read it twice. Then she walked outside to where Cole was working on a new bookshelf for the schoolroom. "He's dead," she said. Cole set down his tools, looked at her. "How do you feel?" Clara thought about that. About the years of fear and pain, about the girl she'd been and the woman she'd become, about all the ways Marcus Whitmore had tried to break her and failed. "Free," she said finally. "I feel free." Cole pulled her close. They stood there in the Montana sunshine, holding each other while the wind whispered through the pines and the creek sang its endless song. That night, Clara burned the letter and the clipping in their fireplace, watched the paper curl and blacken and turn to ash, watched Marcus Whitmore disappear the same way he disappeared from her life 5 years ago, completely, finally, without leaving a trace worth mourning. The next morning, she woke to Cole's hand in hers and sunlight streaming through windows they'd built themselves. She got up, made coffee, prepared lessons for her students, lived her life, the one she'd chosen, the one she'd fought for, the one that was entirely, irrevocably hers. And if sometimes she still dreamed of locked rooms and heavy silences, well, she woke up in a house with no locks, in a bed beside a man who'd chosen her the same way she'd chosen him, in a life built on freedom instead of fear. That was enough. More than enough. That was everything.